Hi, welcome everyone here to Housing for All Gloucester's Ward Councilor Candidate Forum program. We are thrilled to be here at the Gloucester Stage Company tonight and are so appreciative of them hosting us in their space. And also a huge thank you to 1623 Studios for broadcasting this for us. And thank you to all of the Housing for All Gloucester volunteers who helped put this together. Just a big reminder to folks to check out housingforallgloucester.org. Many of the candidates answered a questionnaire specifically around housing, and any candidate who responded, we have posted their responses on the website. Thank you to each of the candidates for being here this evening. Unfortunately, Joe Orlando was unable to attend due to a previous engagement, but did want us to let folks know that. And he does see affordable housing as a #1 need within the community. So wanted to share that. And we might have a late entrance from Sean Nolan at some point, but we will see how that goes. And thank you to everyone that's here tonight and that everyone that's tuning in at home. We pre-selected the order of candidates. They drew pieces of paper with the order number, so we will start with Scott and work our way down the row, and then it'll be round robin style after that. None of the candidates have been given these questions in advance, including those who are members of Housing for All Gloucester. They were not included in any of this planning or question development process. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement, and then after that, they will be questions directed to all of the candidates for them to answer, again with 2 minutes for them to respond, and you'll receive a 30-second warning. Candidates, if you see straight in front of you, Miss Sunny has a 30-second sign, so she will let you know when you have 30 seconds left in pink, then we get stern with a red stop sign when your 2 minutes have concluded. So thank you again, everyone, for being here. We're excited to have you all. So without further ado, we'll get started. And looking to you, Mr. Memhard, please briefly describe your background and how it prepares you to address housing challenges in Gloucester.
Thank you, Erin. My name is Scott Memhard. I'm running for re-election as the Ward 1 Gloucester City Councilor. If I'm elected, this will be my 6th two-year term. I ran for office when Paul McGarry ran for mayor 10 years ago, and he was the previous Ward 1 city councilor. I'm the president and owner of Cape Pond Ice Company. We don't own the real estate anymore, but we do still have a business putting ice on fishing boats. My wife is Martha Oakes, who's the curator of the Cape Ann Museum, and we have 3 kids that have gone through Gloucester schools, and all, fortunately for us, live nearby. And I've got 5 grandchildren, and 2 of them are at the East Veterans School, enjoying that beautiful new facility, as well as the old playground at the old East Gloucester School. I've also served 9 years as on the board and as president of the Sawyer Free Library and Gloucester Lyceum. I served 2 terms on the Chamber of Commerce, and it was president for a number of years there, also Maritime Gloucester and the UU Church in Gloucester. So I'm looking forward to this debate. I enjoy serving our Ward 1 constituents as best I can, and I'm of a clear mind that housing is one of the biggest challenges that we all face here together, affordable housing, workforce housing. But I'm sure we'll get into those details soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're on.
Is this on? Oh, sorry. I wasn't sure if it was on. I was like, I know how to use a microphone. But anyway, first off, thank you to Housing for All for hosting this forum, and thank you for moderating this forum tonight. And to the audience here, thank you for being here. A little bit about me. My name is Dylan Benson. I'm the Ward 2 City Councilor. I'm running for my 2nd term as Ward 2 City Councilor. It's been an honor and a privilege every day to serve the constituents of Ward 2. Whether you voted for me or not in 2023, I represent you and serve you to the best of my ability. In the last, just a little bit about me, I got my undergraduate degree from Salem State University and then went on to get a master's degree from Anna Marie College. Grew up in Gloucester, have lived in Gloucester all my life. My dad's family has lived in Gloucester for almost 400 years. When we were celebrating the 400th, we were looking back at some history and seeing some of our family going back. And growing up, I lived in public housing, living at Maplewood Park. And then at 12 years old, my dad and I moved in with my grandmother on Summit Street, where I still live. My parents live on the first floor apartment, and I live on the second floor apartment. I want to continue to serve, and I believe that my own lived experience will help in addressing the affordability crisis that we face here in Gloucester and across this country. I know many of my friends who have lived in Gloucester all their life, their families have deep roots in this community, and they are struggling to be able to afford to live here. Young people like myself, young families being able to afford here. And in my own experience professionally working for the city of Beverly, learning how to write ordinances, learning how to do things around the role of the city council, understanding what the role is as well, I think I lend myself there. And I look forward to this debate and answering the questions. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Frank Mojota. I am the current Ward 4 councilor. I was born and raised in Gloucester. To tell you, as the question is to tell us a little about yourself, just to let you know, I'm a son of a fisherman. My dad worked on a fishing boat for his whole life, and both my parents are from Sicily, so I'm a first generation person here in Gloucester, which is take a lot of pride in that. I went to school in Johnson, Wales to study business administration, and but then I spent 15 years working in the hotel and restaurant business. I worked in 3 major cities across the U.S. I worked in San Diego, California, which was the 7th largest city, New York City, and in Boston. Experiencing all that, I wanted to come back to Gloucester to raise my family. And I was very fortunate to be able to do that. Which is great. I love living here. I started off living in Ward 3, and then we chose to have a 3rd child, and we outgrew our house, so then we had to move to Ward 4, and that's when I became the Ward 4 councilor, which I love doing. I wanted to run for politics because housing and all these issues that we're going to be talking about, or have talked about, truly does affect myself, my parents, and will affect my children. So I take a lot of pride in what we do, and I really try my best to make every decision possible that is best, not just for my family, but for everyone else's family. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Tracy O'Neill. I am running for Ward 1 City Councilor. Previously, I was a Ward 2 City Councilor, but got redistricted, so I'm new to Ward 1, but I'm not new to the city. I was born and raised here. My children were born and raised here, went through the Gloucester school system. Previous to being a city councilor, I run my own business as a personal trainer. Before that, I worked for a couple of different seafood companies, Mass Coastal Seafoods, National Fish and Seafood. So I do know the seafood industry. I am concerned about housing and the affordability, and I believe there is a housing crisis, but I also believe that there's a greed crisis. Housing is getting way too expensive, and affordable doesn't seem to be affordable anymore, and I will do everything I can to figure out a way to make it affordable for my kids and grandkids. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Marjorie Grace, and I'm running for re-election for Ward 3. I have thoroughly enjoyed my work with the council. I am extraordinarily proud to represent the constituents in Ward 3. My background is in healthcare. I was a surgical technologist, and in some sort of weird way that prepared me very much for the role of city council, because in that capacity I needed to think on my feet, I needed to make snap decisions, I needed to be paying attention to 100 different things all at the same time. My surgical conscience, which is my integrity, was honed in the OR, and I take that very, very seriously. I hope to continue to work for the city and for the constituents of Ward 3. Housing is profoundly important in this community. As the parent of a 28-year-old young woman who just got married a couple of months ago, and seeing how hard it is for her and her new husband to find a home in this town. I'm walking the walk as far as expanding my own housing, and we figured out a way to, make an apartment in our own house so that she could stay in this community. And one of the most important things that people talk about here is the legacy of our town. And if we cannot find a way to keep the young people here, to be able to stay here, to grow here, to thrive here, all of the wisdom and the memories that are presented by so many in our community, that legacy will not go forward. It will be lost and it will be forgotten if we cannot have our young people here to carry it forward. Thanks, Sunny.
Hi, I'm Don Jedis, and I'm an independent candidate for Gloucester Ward 2 Council. I grew up in a family, 5 kids. I'm the middle child. They write books about us. But I enjoyed the birth order regardless. My father was an 8th grade dropout, and he fought in World War II in the South Pacific. My mother's family is from the Azores. I remember living with relatives that were coming over back in the times when there was a lot of immigration from that part of the world. I've lived in Gloucester for over 40 years. I've owned my own businesses in Gloucester for over 40 years, all in Ward 2. I've worked for myself. I've never accepted a check of any other kind other than what I earned. When I was 12 years old, I was co-managing my brother's gas station. When I was 12 years old, he had a gas station, so I did a lot of that. Started at that age, and painted houses. I've worked in Gloucester painting houses. I've worked on Maplewood Avenue in the past, Railroad Avenue, and presently on Main Street in the Browns Mall. Also, in the past, I worked in a pharmacy and got a little taste of that side of health care, and ended up becoming an EMT. That drove me presently into the direction that I enjoy, and that is being a chiropractor. So I would love to represent Ward 2 and all the wonderful people that live there, and look forward to your support. Thank you.
Thank you all for those statements. So we're going to start next with Dylan and go down the line, and we'll loop back to you, Scott. And if you need me to repeat a question, I know there's a lot of you, please feel free to ask. So as a ward counselor, how would you build understanding and dialogue between your ward's residents and the city's broader housing and development goals? Helping residents understand housing needs and policies, and ensuring their perspectives help shape solutions that work for both the ward and for the city as a whole.
Thank you for the question. I think one of the specific things that we have done in the past 2 years as the city councilor is we have done meetings with constituents. We have tried to bring people in. And the one thing that I really have seen and want to continue to see is when there is projects being proposed, is the neighborhood being part of that process from beginning to end. That is something I think is very important, because if there are things that maybe the neighborhood does not look, saying maybe this isn't right for the neighborhood, maybe we can change the rendering of that project. There's been proposals in the past where one floor has gone down. Those are some things that we've looked at in the past, and I think it's important to bring the community in. And when we're looking at development, is preserving the character of the neighborhood, and that is something also I think is very important. Thank you.
Yes, I think one of the most important things as being the ward councilor is listening to your ward. I have, the availability where, people are able to email me, call me, and one thing I do plan on doing more of is, quarterly meetings to be able to listen to constituents and to hear their thoughts about housing crisis and the development, and to let them inform. There's also social media. I don't comment on social media, but I will post on what's going on into the for the city, so I'm able to reach those people who will follow me or on social media, just to let them know what's going on. And like Councilor Benson said, is I also believe in keeping the character of Gloucester. We do need to develop, we do need to create housing, but it's kind of a hard thing to do, but I want to keep the character, and not fully change Gloucester where, in year 500, we were like, where are we now? We don't know, we don't recognize where we live. So by listening to those who live in Ward 4 and also the city, because we do vote everywhere, it's just really, truly listening and being available for those who have questions and comments. Thank you.
How to keep in touch with constituents. When I was a Ward 2 councilor, I had regular neighborhood meetings geared towards Ward 2 people, but everyone was invited. We had them almost monthly. I know we skipped a month here or there for whatever reason, but we even had a meeting where I taught people how to use the city website. So just gathering people together is something that I feel I have a knack for. Like, I brought a lot of people together at the boot camp. I taught this boot camp workout on Good Harbor Beach from 1999 to like 2009. But, and people who went to the first boot camp are still friends today. So bringing people together so that you know where they're coming from, like where they're coming from. Like, you can't build that next to me because it's like a hotel next to me. Or this creek runs under my house. Can you help me figure out what I can do about it? I don't have all the answers, but I do bring people together, and I will have ward meetings. I also send out emails regularly, maybe sometimes too regularly, because I'll do a weekly email, and then I'll send out another one saying, hey, this is what's on the agenda for tomorrow. If you're interested, you should be there. Emails, Facebook posts, same thing. I tell people what's going on, what's going to happen at the meeting, when, and how to get there. I have not done group texts, but that's not out of the question. Thank you.
I think one of the most important things that you can do with helping people to understand and to bring people into the dialogue is to respect people, to respect that everybody has a different point of view, everyone has a different way of looking at things, everyone has a different level of understanding. We need to be 100% accessible to our constituents. I personally have never not returned a phone call or an email or a text. Typically, it's within 5 or 10 minutes, and if it's a little bit longer, it's because, I can at that moment. But it always gets returned, and I think following up on things that you help constituents with as well. You don't just answer it and say, sure, I'll get right on that and work on it. You need to get back to them and say what you're doing. And if you haven't solved an issue yet, still follow up and say, haven't forgotten about you, I'm still working on it, here's what I'm doing. So you update people on what you're doing. You have to listen to what people say. We all look at things differently, and perspective is the reality. And what you see, what I see, what you feel, what I feel is not always going to be the same. But if you respect that fact in individuals, and you can keep a communication and keep a dialogue open, oftentimes you will find middle ground. I think that ward meetings are great. I think that neighborhood meetings are better. I think you get more of a one-on-one. I've had numerous meetings with various neighborhoods around town. I meet with constituents on a regular basis. If they call me up and they have a problem, I meet them where that problem is so that I can look at it firsthand. I can see what's going on. I can ask questions, and I think they realize that, and when someone is there with them and actually talking to them and validating what they're feeling, it goes a long way. Thank you.
Listening is critical when it comes to communication. We live in a time when communication is being transformed, culture is being transformed by technology, by computers. I'm not a big computer or even a telephone person. I prefer in-person, one-on-one, or in small groups. I have no problem meeting regularly with people in the neighborhood at the local eateries or even in their places of residence. It's also important to respect all sides. That's why I'm running as an independent, and I'm not choosing any colors or any political party per se. I will never put political parties over the people of Gloucester. People of Gloucester, particularly Ward 2, will come first. Thank you.
Scott?
Yes, thank you, Aaron. Great answers, everyone. I mean, it's true that my job as a city councilor representing Ward 1 is largely to help make City Hall and the resources there accessible and available to my constituents in the ward. City Hall can seem like an intimidating, unresponsive bureaucracy for many, and a ward councilor's job is to really help connect people through the administration and through all the department heads to solve and address their problems. A lot of those problems are very basic, and whether it's potholes and sidewalks or speeding on East Main Street or a water main line that's on private property, I've helped probably 25 local groups with repaving of private roads in the last 10 years in Gloucester, and it's a very engaging process. It's a great neighborhood building exercise. And I've also helped try and respond to concerns where we've allowed development to proceed in Gloucester, and it's turned out to be more disruptive than anybody might have anticipated, and it's changed the character of some of our neighborhoods, which is a challenge. Orchard Street off Grapevine Road, a large property there, a 3-acre property, has been subdivided with 2 duplexes and then 2 more duplexes going in. And the infrastructure it's obviously marshland, it's moors, and the neighborhood needs a lot of help adjusting to what's been permitted to happen and making sure that their needs and their property rights are also respected. Thank you, Sunny.
Thank you. All right, we'll be starting with Frank this time. Much shorter question. Would you support allowing 3-family homes by right throughout Gloucester? Why or why not?
That's an interesting question, and I know that, with the 3A, we've done the downtown and the downtown district and everything like that, but I haven't heard from my ward. So to answer that question, I really, truly do need to listen to what the residents of Ward 4 want for the neighborhood, and then listen to the other, sit in other ward council meetings just to make sure this is what people want. This is one of the things that we talked about, is changing the character of Gloucester potentially. And for me to say yes or no on a particular thing without listening to the constituents of Ward 4, I feel like I'll be doing an injustice to them. So my answer is I want to listen to my Ward 4 constituents before I and see their thought on 3 families by right.
Thank you. I am vehemently against construction by right. I believe that neighbors should know what's going on next door. No one should be able to build a multifamily building next to your home without telling you what they're doing. You should be able to have a voice to say, no, I don't want a hotel next door to me. I don't want a 3-family. I don't want a multifamily. Even if it's a 1-family, if it's too close to you, or I'm dead set against by right building. That's who I am, and I'm against by right building. So thank you.
Much of the the multifamily overlay district is 3-family by right. Thus far, there has not been one permit pulled to build a 3-family by right in any of these areas that were designated as the overlay district. Currently, if you were to go before the zoning board and planning and development and you wanted to do a 3-family, 99.9% of the time you're going to get approved for that. Do I think going by right across the city? I think it's something worth exploring, but I think it needs to have things connected to it, such as the neighborhood character needs to be paramount. You need to consider that, if you have too much building in too small of an area, the impact that it has on the other people with whom you share that neighborhood. I think that we need to avoid destruction of any more green space in Ward 3 and in Ward 2, because there's really not very much of it left. By right, it gives people the opportunity to have a quicker process when permitting, but To be honest with you, most people cannot afford to do it. Anything three-family or over needs to have a sprinkler system included in it. That's another $150,000 to $200,000 on top of what you would already have to pay for construction, which is outrageously expensive. I think that by right, it sounds good on paper, and I am absolutely for exploring that and talking about that and looking in areas where that would fit. But the reality of it is it's not really going to solve the problem.
Ward 2 seems to be unfairly stressed by a lot of decisions that are being made by the city. The people of Ward 2 are already stressed, whether you're talking about electrical grids or water supplies or parking or noise. All those things are paramount in Ward 2 compared to some of the other areas of the city. So I'm sensitive to that, having lived and worked there for over 40 years. The whole thing seems to be skewed in the direction of the state rather than the people of Gloucester or the people that are directly impacted, like the Ward 2 and the Ward 3 people with the train stations. There's never a discussion about upgrading the train stations. We should have indoor facilities instead of standing out there in all the elements, being exposed to all the weather and stuff. It's unbelievable to me that we have these train stations that are underwhelming if you're a tourist for the first time coming from the Long Wharf Hotel in Boston and you end up in Gloucester and you get off downtown. I don't see how you overcome that first impression. So all these things are unique to Ward 2, and I strongly will support the residents and the good people that live there.
Back to me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Aaron. As city councilor representing Ward 1, myself, Jason Groh, and Val Gilman were the sole supporters for new zoning ordinances that were recommended by our housing production plan and by our planning board, allowing people to convert existing home to a two-family or a three-family by right if they meet all the zoning setbacks. I hope that will be revisited again. It's not appropriate for everywhere in the community. My Eastern Point constituents certainly don't want two- and three-family by right on Eastern Point, and they have a valid point of view, and they're dealing with all the environmental challenges of sea level rise and everything else, maintaining their property out there. We have provisions now that allow for two-family new construction by right, but we can't convert an existing single family by right. We have to go through the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have made a step forward by accepting and endorsing state regulations relating to accessory dwelling units so that you can build a under 1,000 square foot addition on your home, either for yourself to downsize to or as an income producing or a family housing unit. So that was one constructive step. As people have discussed, the 3A downtown MBTA district has not resulted in a dramatic increase in new construction. There's been no new construction that I'm aware of so far. But I am in favor of encouraging conversions of existing residences to two-family and three-family. And there's a question of notifying your neighbors and being aware and having a conversation about it. But I don't think it necessarily entails having to go to the expense of hiring attorneys and going through the Zoning Board of Appeals. We allow conversion, we allow new family, two-family by right, if they meet the zoning setbacks. We do not allow conversion of a one-family to a two-family. That doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely am in favor of allowing for two and three family by right. Specifically, if we've talking just a few minutes ago about the multifamily overlay district and the crunch that a lot of people are feeling in Ward 2. This is something I think can be, and I know we'll probably get to that, is like, is there fair burden sharing across the whole city for sort of zoning changes, and there is things that we need to be looking at there. But I do think that yes, this is something I would support because I believe that it would help families, it would help young people as well. But specifically, if we can allow for more zoning changes beyond just downtown, beyond just Ward 2, and Ward 3, I think is something we need to be looking at. Because again, I do understand the things that folks are feeling, and I'm hearing from a lot of folks, and many people were not happy with some of the votes that I've taken on both sides of on the housing and the affordability crisis, because again, things have to fit the character of the neighborhood, and I've not supported projects that I feel do not support the character of the neighborhood. But also on the multifamily overlay district, I believe that we wanted to remain to have local control. Well, this was our local control. If we had not complied, the state would come in and force us to comply. That's what the SJC decision said. So that is something we need to be aware of. And again, as many folks up here have said, there has been 0 permits pulled under the multifamily overlay district. And with the cost happening with tariffs and the alike, it is very unlikely that we will see development in the future with the multifamily overlay district. And also, as Marjorie said, the sprinkler cost as well. So I think those are important things, but really the main focus is I think we do need to be looking at zoning beyond just Wards 2 and Ward 3, specifically the downtown. And again, I understand the sense that a lot of people are feeling in my ward is the crunch that's happening. Thank you.
Oh, Frank, you just started first. I apologize. Moving on to the next question, we're going to be starting off with you, Tracy. So when new housing proposals such as accessory dwelling units, multifamily projects, or mixed-use developments, affordable or not, face neighborhood opposition, how would you approach those situations? How would you balance legitimate community concerns with Gloucester's housing goals and legal obligations?
Excuse me, I will always side with my constituents. That's it.
New housing development is going to happen in various and sundry places, whether we like it or not. You know, that's the reality of this world that we live in. People need a place to live. I think we need to guide that development to make sure that it is responsible, that it is thoughtful, that it maintains the integrity of neighborhoods, that the aesthetic value is an important part of it, that you don't just slap up an ugly building. There needs to be thought put into it. I think talking to neighborhoods, you know, again, as I've said earlier, everybody is entitled to their opinion, and you need to respect the fact that people have differing opinions about development. You hope to find a compromise. It's not always easy, and sometimes the opposition, it's valid, sometimes it's just fear. There was an incident near where I lived where there was opposition, and it was about the environment, not about housing. So I think you need to get to the root of what causes people to not want to do it, or to be fearful, or to be in opposition to it. And to do that, you have to start a dialogue, and you have to be honest, you have to be open, you have to understand what people are saying, you have to let people have their opinion, validate what they're feeling, because they are entitled to feel what they feel. And that's the only way that we're going to move forward.
When you look at old maps of the city of Gloucester, it lists a good portion of Ward 2 as the Great Swamp. And that's what it is. And when you're talking about building, it's probably wise to respect nature, for the point being that it is the limiting factor. You can't build in all conditions. You can't build on sand for existence. Technology has allowed us to exceed common sense, and now we're building over water, we're building on top of cliffs, we're building on the sides of cliffs. There's no limits. The builders view it as a challenge, and it looks good on their bio that they built something that no one else could get done or whatever. But the point being is nature wins all these discussions. You don't even have to debate it. It's not even a political issue. Eventually a person will have water in their first floor, or they'll fall off a cliff or something. And that's nature saying you shouldn't have built there to start with. So rather than focus on trying to control nature, maybe we should be respecting her and not building so close to the edges of cliffs, or maybe on the seashore, where years ago, just in my short life, we used to play in these fields, and the water would come and the water would go away. Now it's another neighborhood. That's a problem.
Again, I'd say it's all about balance, really. You want to respect and take into consideration local concerns. Unfortunately, sometimes local concerns come down to not in my backyard. One of my big disappointments, probably 4 or 5 years ago now, was when Habitat for Humanity was offered property on Marina Drive for a rehab that they would have done, and the neighborhood was not persuaded that that was appropriate for the Marina Drive neighborhood, and they came out strongly against it, and I was very saddened by those opinions, but I respect those and worked with them, and so Habitat for Humanity went away. Similarly, they've gone away on a proposed project that we're asked to look at on Gloucester Avenue, which would have been a 5 or 6 duplex development there. Again, the neighborhood didn't feel it was appropriate, and they fought back and expressed their concerns, and developers are looking for welcome, not opposition, going into these sort of things. There is new housing going in that on the property that the parking lot that Action owns next to where the animal shelter used to be, across from the old Blackburn Halibut Point restaurant, and that's going to lose a parking lot for the neighborhood, which is a source of concern. But Action has had that project in mind for many decades, in fact, and it's their property, and they're going to go ahead and build a 20 or 30 unit single-room occupancy property downtown on Main Street. They're trying to balance the parking and the off-street parking and the neighborhood and the businesses that are all there, but they have a mission to provide housing. And just like the YMCA and just like the project that went in where Cameron's Restaurant went in, we've seen significant progress towards locating additional housing downtown, near our shops and restaurants, and central to the city, where you can get to the train station, for that matter. So you have to respect people's. It's a conversation. There's not a simple answer. We may have goals that neighborhoods don't necessarily embrace, and we can discuss that and ultimately respect what the neighborhood wants.
Yeah. I am just going to flag that lot is owned by Gloucester Housing Authority, and Harbor Light Homes is developing it right now.
Okay.
So yes, thank you,
Thank
Bill.
you for that clarification, Eric.
Thank you, Dylan.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, of course. When new housing proposals such as accessory dwelling units, multifamily projects, or mixed-use development, affordable or not, face neighborhood opposition, how would you approach those situations?
Yeah, I think just to kind of repeat, and just quickly what you said about the development that's happening at Harbor Light, I think that is something that is going to be happening. It was owned, and Harbor Light is going to be developing it. It's been in the works for many years. But I think it's important that we try to find a creative solution for the parking that's going to be lost there. I think the next administration, whoever wins that, is going to have to address that, and I look forward to working with that administration to try to find some creative parking. But what I'm hearing from constituents again and again in Ward 2 is that they feel that the development is not being shared across all of the city, and I think that is something right now. Most development is happening in downtown, and it feels unfair, and to a lot of people in my ward. And it's important that we support housing growth beyond just the center of downtown. If we're going to support housing, how do we find, and specifically, how do we support housing that actually helps young people that have lived here all their life be able to afford a home here? That is something we have, instead of just building all of these apartments, which is a piece of it, but we also need to be looking at that. And I think going back to it is we need to really speak to this inequity, encouraging more housing in other neighborhoods, and in the next couple of years, really looking at that and supporting, again, affordable home ownership, rental options citywide. I think with the ADUs, is a great tool, and I know a lot of families live in multi-generational homes still. A lot of people have changed where people are leaving their home early, but there are still a lot of people in Ward 2 that have lived in their homes for generations, and you have mother, grandmother, children, and now great-grandchildren. And I think ADUs is a tool, and we have our own local ordinance. We have the state that has put forward something, and we could look at this again and see what are we doing that we could support more of this, and how does this help that sandwich generation manage the high cost of housing, older family members. I know if I was to to own a home. I have grandparents that are still in their late 70s that they could live to be 100 years old. And I think that's something I could be looking at, okay, maybe an ADU for my grandmother, and then my parents maybe living in the third floor apartment if I had a multifamily home. So I think that's something we need to be looking at and encouraging folks that an ADU is an option to help families. So thank you. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at you.
I know, I was just going to get, you're good.
And then I know, Sonny, you're giving me that, I'm getting a little windy here. I apologize. So thank you.
Frank?
Dylan was in his zone. If he didn't put that stop sign up, he would have kept talking. But really, with any new development, again, you have to listen to the constituents, and then along with listening to constituents, is listen to what the ZBA, in their opinion, and whether or not this project fits within their ordinances that fit Gloucester, and also look into the character of Gloucester. I think that's also very important. Like I said, that we've all said before, is keeping Gloucester, Gloucester. Just to piggyback on what kind of Dylan said too, is we're trying to build up the downtown to create more businesses. How can we create more businesses into the downtown, and what does that do? Are there options to do, businesses on the first floor and then, housing on the second floor or the third, whichever way you can do it. So it's looking at everything, listening to the people, of Gloucester, and how to create, more housing and businesses, not just in downtown, but throughout Gloucester. And of course, any time there is, new construction or anything new, there is going to be opposition, which is fine. I mean, that's what makes, people's opinion matter. So it really is truly trying to listen to everyone, and is there a middle ground? What if we can do anything to, make both sides happy? Thank you.
And thank you, Frank, for setting me up for our next question perfectly. We're starting with you, Marjorie, this time. Under Chapter 40R, the city could adopt a smart growth overlay district that blends housing with commercial space, brings state incentive funds for schools, and encourages development near transit. Would you support creating such a district? And if so, how could property owners be incentivized to pursue mixed-use development?
I think mixed-use development is one of the tools in the arsenal to fix the housing crisis problem. I think, we have a perfect example of where mixed use is staring us in the face every time that we go downtown, and that is the Shaw's Plaza. The potential is there to do something that could dramatically improve people's lives. It could dramatically improve the what it looks like down there, and as Mr. Jett has said about, when you get off the train and what you're looking at. I think that it's an important thing to do and to explore in this town, especially if you have buildings that are defunct. And I am also a strong advocate for repurposing buildings that are already there, that if you can do it for mixed use or you can do it for just housing, so that you are using what's already there and not changing the landscape any more than it's already been changed. Thank you.
Chapter 40, I support the general idea of Chapter 40, but let's back up a little bit and just talk about creating an environment and a culture that is attracting success. I'll use the example of the family from somewhere else that comes to New England, and they're spending a week at the Long Wharf Hotel, and they decide to jump on the train at the North Station and end up in Gloucester. Wouldn't it be wonderful if they were overwhelmed by something instead of underwhelmed? And you only have one chance at a first impression, which will last a lifetime. So that's no secret. It actually looks blighted. And we've become so accustomed to it, we've normalized a lot of these things that out-of-towners and tourists remember. So concerning the mixed use, there's also the law of unintended consequences. The word capacity is not unlimited. You have everything has a break point. You don't want to reach it. You don't even want to approach it. Whether you're talking about titanium or the environment or people's emotions, everything has a break point. What if I told you that Scott mentioned the YMCA building, the John Meany building on Middle Street, excuse me. The John Meany building on Middle Street is built on a stream. The first thing they did is they put a cistern in with a pump system. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just telling you that's doesn't appear to be that if you just look at it for the first time. But that's the reality. That's the first step they took when they built what you see today. That's a small example. The water from Babson Reservoir is coming through Ward 2. It's going down Maplewood Avenue. It's coming down Webster Street, which used to be the site of Webster Pond, the founding location, I believe, of Cape Pond Ice. So those are things that are important that should be considered with all these ambitious ideas. Thank you.
Thanks. Scott?
Could you restate the question again,
Of
please?
course. So under Chapter 40R, the city could adopt a smart growth overlay district that blends housing with commercial space, brings state incentive funds for schools, and encourages development near transit. Would you support creating such a district? And if so, how would you incentivize property owners to pursue mixed development?
I think we need to have a community conversation about that, but myself, I believe that it does make good sense. It's a lot less expensive to build infill new development or above, on the second floor, above commercial space downtown with existing infrastructure. It makes for a community. It helps build a community. Water and sewer are there. I believe that having residences above downtown businesses, as Marjorie said, the Shaw's project would be, we didn't try and engage mixed use, commercial use, and residential above in the 3A discussion because that proved to be very, very complicated from the state's point of view, but we can do that on our own, and I hope that we do, both through the Shaw's downtown and perhaps the Shaw's on Eastern Avenue. It'd be wonderful development sites for housing that's close to the beach, close to the restaurants, close to the supermarket. If it's above the supermarket, you can't get much better than that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think as we're looking at specific development downtown, specifically looking at Railroad Ave, where we're talking about this evening a blighted area, there's the Reimagining Railroad plan that was put forward many years ago, probably when I was still a kid or whatever. But anyway, that is something we should be looking at that plan and not just keeping those plans tucked away somewhere. I think specifically looking at the Shaw's lot that is something that is an underutilized lot. I'd support looking at that as a tool, maybe changing the zoning as a tool, but I really think if this was to come before the council, I would want, obviously we can't say, well, we're only going to give the zoning if you guarantee a grocery store at the bottom, but that is something I would be asking, because this has really been a really difficult time for many folks that do not have cars in downtown, specifically our seniors, folks who are low income, not being able to have a grocery store. This is now a food desert in Ward 2. This is devastating. This is devastating. And I think that is something we could be looking at, could this be a tool? There's other things that we could look at as well, and I look forward to those conversations. I think, I'm just making sure I'm running over time here, but with that specific question too, we should be looking at, is this a tool in the toolbox that could help? We should definitely look at some sort of mixed use, and we have seen that in the past where repurposing buildings and supporting those where it, again, fits the character of the neighborhood. Those are things we could look at. And specifically, I don't think, again, works if we're having 15 plus units above a commercial space in the downtown. I don't think that fits the character of the neighborhood, but these are things we should be looking at. And again, if it does help bring more funds in as we're continuing to be strapped for money, that is something to look at as well.
I think being able to do that sort of work with the businesses on the bottom and housing on the top. When I moved from Boston to New York with my wife and my son, we lived downtown, and we lived right above, right across from Bravo Pizza. And for us, it was amazing to have that sort of. I'm not comparing New York City to Gloucester, but have that sort of city life that we were able to go from our house downtown and go enjoy the many restaurants and shops that Gloucester does have, and being able to walk, to the boulevard regularly and, enjoy Stageford Park. That's amazing. That was an amazing time, for us, and we still enjoy, downtown shops and everything. But it's really having the plan in place and listen to the community to making sure that it does, one, again, I can't stress enough, to fit the character. Listen to the constituents, not just in Ward 4, but when, again, we're talking about the Shaw's Plaza, what is the overall consensus of Gloucester? I work at the Open Door, and, what Dylan said, the downtown having a food desert. There is a lot of things going on at the Open Door. We are seeing an increased number of people there. There is a need for housing that is, affordable, and there is a need to create businesses downtown to have people want to work here. I think that creating a plan, working with the ZBA, working with the City Council, working with the administration, listening to community, we are able to find a way to help create more housing and businesses in Gloucester. Thank you.
I am not averse to mixed-use 40R, particularly at the Shaws on Railroad Ave. I was Ward 2 City Councilor. That's my grocery store. What I understand is that a lot of people did shop there, but I also understand that there was a lot of theft that happened in that store. So we need, I know this isn't the mixed-use question, but we need to, police our streets a little better and clean up our city a little bit better, because whatever goes in there, if it's a commercial, if it's a grocery store, if it's a grocery store in a Marshall's or whatever goes in there needs to be safe. No one's gonna rent that or buy that place if they're getting stolen from. So I am in favor of mixed use, particularly at that spot. And I would try to make it a contingent on having a grocery store there, because we really need it. I live there. We need that grocery store. And there are 3 elderly or senior housing buildings in that area in walking distance. And they walk there with their carriages or with their whatever. They walk to that grocery store. And I miss that store. I have a car, and I miss that store. So I'm in favor of, talking about the 40R, but I would also strongly suggest that whatever goes in that particular spot is a grocery store. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Moving on, we're now starting with you, Don. Gloucester faces infrastructure challenges, including limited sewer and water capacity in some areas. As a ward councilor, what steps would you take to improve or expand infrastructure so the city can support sustainable housing growth?
You cannot exceed the capacity. The city already has a stressed electrical grid, and we're routinely put on water restrictions, water bans. So how do you get past that? You have to either increase your capacity or limit your growth. So that I think that would be a good discussion to have. You just cannot exceed nature. She wins all these, like I said earlier, all these discussions are settled on her terms eventually. And that doesn't even get into the other issues of parking and quality of life issues, safety issues. There's many issues. So it's possible, because the city hasn't grown since the 1900s, that we're at, or we've already possibly exceeded capacity. I don't have the answer to that question, but I think it would make a worthy discussion.
Thank you. Scott.
Yes. It's a good question. I think we tend to get hung up on it a little bit, because Gloucester does have a wealth of water resources through the reservoirs that we have on both sides of the Cape. The sewer is adequate. We have to be careful about too much development in areas that are inappropriate, that don't have access to sewers, that are on septic, and causes degradation of the environment and consequences for abutters and neighborhoods. As Don mentioned, the electric grid, particularly on the industrial commercial side of things, is a limiting factor for expansion of business on Cape Ann and up in the industrial parks. But And traffic, particularly in East Gloucester and on East Main Street, the question is where you park your cars and how you get access to the water sheet and the restaurants and the theater and all the shops down on Rocky Neck. We have an elderly infrastructure and an old community, 200, 400 years old, built on granite, which limits a lot of our options. And the sewer can allow for too fast growth and development, so that there are limitations that we have to be very careful about. And we have all our grinder pump stations up through Lanesville and Annisquam that are expensive to maintain, that have allowed for additional development where people didn't have gravity sewer access. And they're all on granite ledge. So, thank you.
Thank you. Could you repeat the question?
Certainly. So Gloucester faces infrastructure challenges, including limited water and sewer capacity in some areas. As ward councilor, what steps would you take to improve or expand infrastructure so the city can support sustainable housing growth?
Yeah, sure. I think, well, one thing we are going to be working towards is we're going to be looking at the coming on soon, probably by the end of the decade, the secondary water treatment plant. That is going to be coming on, and that is going to help a lot of the businesses, specifically in Ward 2, be able to support their industries. And that, but also we need to be thinking about the cost and making sure that that cost is not burdened on the ratepayer. Other things around infrastructure too, as we continue to look at what ways can we support more growth in supporting that infrastructure. Like, for example, there is underutilized industrial parks in the community because there isn't water and sewer to connect those areas. How can we maybe look at state and federal money to come in to support that? That would also create jobs, opportunities as well, and then we would be able to have those businesses and maybe even look at supporting more development. But again, it's about capacity. And I know we're going to be we deal with drought concerns in the last several years, and water is a concern. And also, how do we build for the future? I think that is something we need to be looking at as we carefully look at when we develop. How do we support development that, whether it's a commercial space or residential space, that is energy efficient? How do we support that? How do we support and create and maybe get rid of those barriers to support more energy efficiency and take steps that also, in that vein, we'd be able to take steps in addressing the rising energy costs. I can't tell you how many people in Ward 2 that have called and talked, and this isn't something we can address locally, but talking about the rising cost of electric bills, but how can we maybe support that as well? Thank you.
This is a, very tough question. I think, you really, if you're looking at Ward 4, specifically, if this question is directed towards, is listening to experts, going to the DPW, talking to those there, and finding out their actual information, working with National Grid to see what can be done for the electrical problem, work with the gas companies, what can we do to expand, and like what Dylan said, look for state and federal help. How will that help us be able to get what we need into those particular areas to help develop those areas? Because we always talk about reaching this limit, but what can we do to sort of help expand it a little bit more to get more housing in Gloucester? But it really is looking at all the possible resources that we can to be able to create the power that we need to run businesses and homes. And the major concern for everyone is, I think, the rising cost of electricity and sewer and gas and all those stuff, the utilities. How can we increase those options, but not increase the prices that we have to pay, every month on those? I think that's important to try to figure out as well. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
My pleasure, no problem. Gloucester faces infrastructure challenges, including limited sewer and water capacities in some areas. As ward councilor, what steps would you take to improve or expand infrastructure so the city can support sustainable housing growth?
So I took about 20 minutes and I looked at the area maps on the city of Gloucester, and I have properties here: Aiden Road, Atlantic Street, Cary Lane, Jones River Road. This one has a half an acre, 7 acres, 6,500 square feet. You could still, Ward 2 is did they decrease the 5,000 square foot R5 to 4,000 square feet? So they changed it for Ward 2, they could change it for this place. Jones River Road, half an acre, 4.41 acres. The list goes on, okay? And these are all lots that the city owns that are right on the street. I didn't go deep into nowhere land. They're on the street, 1 Periwinkle Lane, 1 Revere Street, 10 Wheeler Street. They're on the street. So there is water, there is sewer, there is electricity. This took me about 20 minutes. I got like 17 pieces of property. Jones River Road, 25, number 25 Jones River Road, number 23, number 17, 15, 13, 11, 9, 7, 5, 3, 1. Those all add up to like 227 square feet, or acres, 22 acres, I believe. Same thing with Ridgewood Lane. They're all together on the same side of the road. It's a road. It's available. The city owns it. So I see this as solutions, or at least let's talk about it. And what about the big property that Demoulas owns off of Concord Street? That's huge. I don't know what they're going to do with it. Are they interested in selling it? I don't know. Gull Lane, Valley Road, same thing, 15, 17, 19, 21, 23. They're all on the same side of the road, and they're on a road that has electricity, has water, etc. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to try to pull it back into what the question is, which is about infrastructure, specifically water and sewer. A lot of the downtown area, at least where I'll speak for where I live, because that's my experience. It's a labyrinth of, kind of wonky pipes that have been there for, 50, 60, 70 years, and people connected into things that, nobody really quite knows how they got connected in there. Supporting improving and increasing infrastructure isn't an issue. I think everybody supports that. It's paying for it that's the issue. It's enormously expensive to do that. I think one of the biggest areas in Gloucester that should be explored to increase and improve infrastructure would be Magnolia. You have an entire area down there on Lexington Avenue that you talk about mixed-use housing, and that's your perfect place to do it. It's already there, and what holds it back is there is no sewer in that area. It's all on septic, so it hinders what can be done down there. As I said, it's paying for it is the big issue. There's a project that's underway in the area where I live, and a $400,000 grant from the state got as far as the engineers coming down and drilling holes in the street and try to, kind of putting a plan in where can they do this. And that's as far as it's gotten in months and months and months, because there just simply isn't any money to pay for it. I think to sink money into this sort of thing, you got to look in the parts of the city where it's going to best benefit and the most improvement, and where can we tie this into what we're here tonight about, which is the housing. And I think Magnolia is a really good place to start. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we come back to the top of the row. Scott, no, didn't we start with Dawn? Yeah, okay. So, got me nervous there for a second. Okay, one of the drivers of Gloucester's housing unaffordability is low wages. So according to U.S. Census data, more than half of Gloucester's residents are considered low income in that they make less than 80% of the area median income. While the City Council can't set wages, it can influence economic conditions through zoning, development priorities, and partnerships. What specific actions would you take to help foster and support living wage jobs in Gloucester?
That's a very tough question, especially where the economic engine of the waterfront and our fishing industry is at a currently very low level, and that the industrial park that Gloucester Harbor represents is not being fully utilized for jobs the way it has in the past. Unfortunately, we are considered within the greater Boston market in terms of housing and affordability, so that our residents are at a disadvantage in terms of what their income is relative to what they can afford to pay. Part of the solution, I believe, is partnerships with not-for-profits, leveraging our Community Preservation Act funds, leveraging the surcharge we have on Airbnbs that the state manages for us. It's a 3% surcharge that goes into, it's dedicated to our Affordable Housing Trust. The administration has worked with the Gloucester Affordable Housing Trust to leverage ARPA funds that were available in that direction, which was a wise move, and we're seeing opportunities for the city. The city shouldn't be in the business of providing housing, but we can leverage our resources to work with partners that are expert, like Harbor Light, in terms of development and management of opportunities for low-cost, affordable housing. Senior housing is part of that picture, and the Sam Park development up at the industrial, up at the Gloucester Crossing has a site that was reserved specifically for senior housing, and we haven't been able to figure out a partnership with not-for-profit entities that allow us to develop that yet, but we need to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. This is something that I think many folks in my ward, including growing up and dealing with being cost burdened by housing, specifically spending more than 30% of their monthly income on housing. My father himself still is working a couple of odd jobs and still at almost 70 years old, and I'm helping pay his rent and pay my own rent. So this is the reality of many people that are choosing between paying rent, putting food on the table. And I think when what Scott just said is we are included in that greater Boston area, what could we do? I know we've had discussions in the past about trying to change that. I think it's on all of us as a community to see how we cannot be included in that, because our wages are very different than those folks. And how do we support greater, obviously we are not controlling wages, but how do we support more job growth? How do we support our young people to be able to afford to live here? Specifically, what programs do we have in our high school that we are, obviously we're not the school committee, but we have programs there that are supporting young people who are not going to be going off to college, those things as well, so young people are able to get out of high school and make a decent living. Those are some things that we should be looking at as well. And we have to tackle this as collaboratively. It's a multifaceted approach. That's why I say the housing crisis, it's an affordability crisis, because it encumbers so many things. So many people who cannot afford housing cannot afford food. So those are things that we need to be looking at and supporting nonprofit partnerships with organizations to expand rental assistance for folks in this community, and obviously looking at preference for residents here, supporting our residents. We're talking about people, our neighbors, our friends, our family that are struggling to be able to afford to live here.
Like my fellow councilors over here said, being in that mix with the Boston area does help. But a way to do it is potential. How can we create more businesses here in Gloucester to make people want to work here? They have the driving force to make people want to come here, work, not just go into other areas, Danvers or Salem, to make that money. What businesses we can get here? Again, this is a question where it comes to the infrastructure. How can we all work together to get businesses here in Cape Ann? Some say we're at the end of the road. Maybe we are at the beginning of 128 and then we go on that way. How can we get businesses here to create not just living wages, but more than that? With the rising cost of groceries and the delivery charges for electricity, everything, it's very tight for very families, and we're in a situation where we really do need to work together as a community to help find a way to create more businesses, to help our neighbors, and to help families, with the rising cost of colleges, daycare, and all these things that go with, working, it's just hard. So how can we get more businesses into Gloucester to help with the income? Thank you.
Could you repeat the question?
So, one of the drivers of Gloucester's housing unaffordability is low wages. According to the U.S. Census data, more than half of Gloucester's households are considered low income in that they make less than 80% of the area median income. While obviously the city council can't set wages, it can influence economic conditions through zoning, development priorities, and partnerships. What specific actions would you take to help foster and support living wage jobs in Gloucester?
Excuse me. Our two biggest employers are Varian and Gorton's. I would go to Varian and ask them, can we start a program with you? Will you come to the high school and teach our kids what you need so that Varian doesn't have to go out of town to get workers? Could you come to the high school and help us, or could we have a program at Varian that you would oversee and help us grow these high schoolers to grow into the job that you need specifically? Gorton's, I'm not sure that there's opportunity there, but I'm not sure that there isn't. What do you need, Gorton's? Do you need office staff? Do you need, I forget what it is, do you need truckers? What do you need? How can we help you, Gortons, to stay here? Will you develop a program with us, or can we develop a program with you? Working with the trades, yes, absolutely, I agree. I don't know how many trade classes we have in the high school, but electricians, plumbers, carpenters, you name it, we need them. And can we get a plumber to come in and teach these kids, to a retired guy, a retired plumber? They might be thrilled to do that if they're retired. I mean, they're uplifting. And if we teach them to do what we need them to do, they'll do it. We'll teach you to be a plumber. You make a really good living at being a plumber. And electricians, they make a lot of money. Get a retired man or whatever. But that's it. Thank you.
Okay, if the city council could bring in jobs, wouldn't that be wonderful with our magic wand that we do not possess? I think there are ways that we can help at least the younger generations coming up to be able to stay here with higher wage jobs. We have a program that is starting at Gloucester High School for medical assisting. It's a great entry-level position into the healthcare field. Healthcare has an enormous amount of potential and capacity, and you can make a damn good living in healthcare. I know, I worked there. I think that I find it really sad that they now are discouraging work-from-home jobs. Work-from-home jobs are a win-win for so many people. It helps with childcare issues. It helps with having, not having to have a vehicle that you have, drive through all the elements and whatever. Unfortunately, that again is not in the purview of the city council to do anything about. I think that the more training that we can get to younger people in particular, to encourage people. We went through a really long period of time in this country where you have to go to college. You can't make it in this world if you don't go to college. And the reality of it is, you can make a very good living, as Tracy said, as a plumber, as an electrician, as a carpenter. And if we provide those tools to teach people, which we have some great vocational capacity at the high school, and I think expanding on that would help to bring in jobs. And I think, just from personal experience, I think the more that we can push with healthcare, we have an aging population, and a lot of home healthcare is needed, and those are jobs that pay above minimum wage, and they're very rewarding jobs. Thank you.
Ultimately, doesn't it boil down to personal choice? Gloucester has to make a personal choice, what kind of community we're going to have. Years ago, you could buy a house and be a waitress at the Gloucester House restaurant. That wasn't unusual. You could be a part-time lumper and buy a house. Those days are over. No fault of anybody's in particular. It's not Gloucester's fault. It's just how the economy changed. That's the realities. So the personal choice has to boil down to bettering yourself and making yourself more marketable, having a marketable skill that's worth more, and then lining yourself up with a need and fulfilling that. What is keeping Varian in Gloucester? What is keeping Gorton's in Gloucester? I know they have a history here, but we have to be sensitive to have them want to stay here. They can up and leave. Just imagine that scenario. So we really have to take this serious, where Gloucester has to wake up to the reality of making itself attractive. How about dropping the tax rate 0.5%? Businesses look at stuff like that. Or the quality of life, or how about the quality of the education? A lot of those people have families. So if you're not paying attention to those quality of life issues and those details, that's what the other side is looking at, and that's an important factor in the equation, in my opinion. We have some natural resources here we could utilize. We have a coastline that almost rivals the land area. So we could probably focus on some marine-related businesses that presently are not here. That would be a no-brainer for beginners. It's not that difficult. It just takes a shift in the priorities and in the vision, and then the rest will follow. Thank you.
Thanks. And we will enter, this is the last question that you'll all answer before we pivot to these special questions for each of you, so get excited for that. Very hot off the press, Travel and Leisure recently named Gloucester one of the best places to live. With growing visibility, how would you as a councilor help Gloucester maintain its identity as a working-class fishing community, and at the same time ensure the basic needs of our workforce, seniors, and young families are met? Oh, sorry, and yes, Dylan, you're first.
No, it's okay. I think the first point is the reason that people visit here is because of our fishing industry, because we are the oldest seaport in America. That is why people come here, and all of the businesses that are supported by that old industry, whether where it is today, where it was 30 years ago, 50 years ago, our restaurants are supported by the tourism industry and in de facto supported by the fishing industry. So it's important that we continue to preserve that, and we look at our lobster industry as well. We are many years we're number one lobster port in Massachusetts. I think too is what we want to do is we want to continue, when we are looking at development, is preserving the character of our neighborhoods, preserving our history, not looking at developing things that are not in the character of one neighborhood or the other as well. I think other things that we could look at, and circling back, is we looking at the entrance to the community, the MBTA Railroad Avenue. I think we look back at the Reimagining Railroad study and see what can we do, because that is some area that is underutilized. We also have the Shaw's Lot. But people are visiting this community more and more because of our beaches, because of our history. But we also need to be rooted in that working class background that I come from, that I was built on, that I know many people in this room were built on. We have to preserve that character. We have to preserve that history, and we have to preserve our working class roots as well.
Do you mind
Of
repeating the
course.
question?
Yep, so Travel and Leisure recently named Gloucester one of the best places to live. With this growing visibility, how would you as a councilor help Gloucester maintain its identity as a working class fishing community, and at the same time ensure the basic needs of our workforce, seniors, and young families are met?
I think being in the leisure, I like to first thank all the residents of Gloucester. It takes a community to make Gloucester a top 10. It really is a beautiful area, and we all take pride in where we live. I think that's the most important. We have great beaches and amazing restaurants, and a lot of people come to Gloucester for our fresh seafood. Again, that incorporates our fishing industry. People working in the restaurant business for many years, in three restaurants in Gloucester, including the hotel. People wanted to come. They wanted to learn about the history of Gloucester. Working at the Beauport, they always asked, who the people on the picture of the wall were, Francis D. Chaplain, 1623, sorry. Why the Beauport restaurant was named that. So it's just knowing the history of Gloucester and really focus on the business downtown. We really have amazing restaurants, amazing shops. How can we promote those shops and those restaurants and the downtown business to keep these people coming here, keep our beaches clean, most importantly, keeping our streets safe for all those people who are coming into Gloucester. But really, to be in the top 10 like we are, it really takes every single resident of Gloucester and having pride where we live to work together to keep that going. Thank you.
I see this as a tale of two cities. It was the worst of times, it was the best of times. I think Gloucester is split in two. If you take a walk down Railroad Ave, if you take a walk down Main Street, you will see a whole different set of people than you see in Ward 4, Ward 1, Ward 3, Ward 5. And if Gloucester is one of the best places to live, then why are we so low on the area median income, right? I mean, we're less than half of the area median income. So I love Gloucester. I was born and raised here. I did not appreciate it as a kid living up. We lived on Good Harbor Beach and Cressy's Beach, took swimming lessons in the morning, went to Good Harbor Beach all afternoon. It's a great place. But there are two Gloucesters. There's one Gloucester that's downtown, and if you don't walk downtown, you should, okay? And there's another Gloucester that's on the back shore. So, Gloucester is the oldest fishing port, not the oldest seaport, the oldest fishing port, and we do need to support that. We need to support that in any way we can. What that is, I don't know. I am not a fisherman's daughter, but that's it. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question?
Yep, so Travel and Leisure named Gloucester one of the best places to live. With this growing visibility, how would you as a councilor help Gloucester maintain its identity as a working class fishing community and at the same time ensure the basic needs of our workforce, seniors, young families are met?
I think the first thing that we have to do is to prioritize each other. We've been discovered. We're not going to be undiscovered. This is not actually a new thing for this city. If you look back in some of the history books that are available at Sawyer Free Library, there were many large hotels that were on Eastern Point Boulevard. There were many large hotels that were in Magnolia. It's been a playground for a very long time for the wealthy. That's not going to change. It's how we prioritize the people who live here and work here and breathe here and are the nuts and bolts of this community. I think that one thing that we can do to make sure that Ward 2, Ward 3 specifically do not get kind of lost in the shuffle is to expand our zoning into the outlying wards and to look at areas where we can change from R20 to R40 and go down to R5 and R10 and have, some modest homes that are built on modest pieces of land that, perhaps people with a modest income could live at, improve public transportation in this city, expand it so that people can live in other wards if they don't have access to a car. If they can take the bus, then, give everybody the opportunity to live in the quiet part of town. I think it's important to maintain and to really enforce the short-term rental ordinance that we put into place a little over a year ago to prioritize year-round rentals as opposed to short-term rentals that, year-round that's geared towards our citizens and not short-term that's geared towards our visitors. We're going to have visitors. They're going to keep coming. You keep raising the cost here, you're not going to have to worry about them staying.
Thank you, Tracy, for making that distinction. It is the country's oldest fishing port. That is being glossed over. That is being erased or replaced by the oldest seaport. There's a big difference. St. Augustine's, Florida might have something to say about that claim. But anyways, travel and leisure, well, that's marketing. I'm not a big fan of gimmicks and marketing because that's image building. I'm a big supporter of substance and results. There's no need to put, it's actually dangerous to put all your eggs in one basket and just depend on a tourist trade, which if you really look at it, you're lucky to get 30 days that are beach days. The rest of the time, you're at the 42nd degree latitude. It's windy, it's too hot, it's too cold, it's the water's freezing, whatever it is. Those aren't tourist days. So you can't even count those. What we need to do is start thinking, change the vision, change the thinking into a 365-day city where people can have an economy and have a job all year round. In the middle of February, you're still making your bills. You don't have to go to Florida to escape, or you don't have to suffer. That should be the plan, is to have an all year round economy for the residents. And then the tourists become frosting on the cake. It becomes extra. But to depend on tourists, to me, that's dangerous. The weather's too fickle at this latitude, and I just don't put a big priority on that for an economic security. Thank you.
Next.
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. So, travel and leisure may say it's a great place to visit, but it's even a better place to live. And the balance that we have between industry, whether it's the harbor front or our industrial parks, our arts community, all the restaurants, the attraction and the funding that we get by being a tourist attraction. We have to manage all these assets. We have a long history, but we have to manage our assets together so that we maintain the attractive nature of visiting Gloucester and balanced with living in Gloucester. Some small things we've done to help address that was simply online beach reservation systems. It was 4 or 5 years in the works, and we've seen a dramatic improvement in the quality of life for people who reside near beaches, because people are no longer parking on those streets. We've reserved those for resident only, and people who come to Gloucester have already made in advance online reservations, so they come, they go right to the parking lot, they go in, and they don't clog up our streets. It's been a dramatic improvement that all of us have enjoyed, and made Gloucester a much more pleasant place to visit because they're not being turned away at the ticket booth. We have a wealth of natural resources in Gloucester: our beaches, our parks, Dogtown, the arts community, the fishing industry, lobsters, all these things that each of us has described. Such a rich history, and it's always been the case, as you mentioned. But as a city, we need to maintain. The Clean City Commission still doesn't have a quorum, unfortunately. We're working on that. We need to prioritize our resources so that as a city and citizens, we take pride in what we have in terms of our home, Gloucester, Cape Ann, but also being welcoming to visitors so that they have a positive experience visiting us and learning about our heritage, and they want to share the wealth and spread the good word and come back and visit again next year. Right now, there are not a lot of Canadians coming to visit, unfortunately, but we do have lots of repeat visitors. The ice company and the Perfect Storm carry on in terms of an attraction.
I am going to have to cut you off just because we're sensitive on time. I'm sorry. The lights are very bright here. So we are going to pivot to these special questions for each of you. So based on the questionnaire responses that you may have submitted, we crafted a question or used comments or things that you have shared to be able to do so. For this segment, we are starting with you, Frank. So when you think about your ward, where do you see opportunities to create housing that would be affordable to the average Gloucester worker? For example, someone like a home health aide or a school teacher paying no more than 30% of their income. Some have suggested the Beaman school site is a possible location. Do you think that's feasible? Could expand on that.
Again, answering questions like that without neighborhood meetings and without having the information in front of me, it's kind of hard. You know, being born and raised in Ward 3, you know, and living downtown, there's unique characteristics of every single ward. So, you know, with, you know, Beaman or Plum Cove is really listening to the constituents and having those neighborhood meetings and getting their feedback. I think that's the most important thing to listen to before I, you know, can actually make a decision on that. I think as a ward counselor, I represent the ward and I really want to listen to them and I care about their opinions. So again, like a previous question you had, I would listen to the ward and get the consensus of what they feel would be appropriate for particular sites like the schools. Thank you.
Tracy, so focusing on solutions and drawing on your experience and understanding, what do you see as Gloucester's most significant housing challenges? Who is most affected? And what steps would you take to address them going forward?
Okay, Gloucester's most challenging housing, I would say, is affordability. I know Harbor Light Homes is going to build on Main Street. Are they going to rent those spaces, or are they going to sell them as condos? Because if they're going to rent them, Harbor Light Community Homes, or whatever they call themselves now, is a nonprofit, so they're not paying taxes. We need to increase our tax base. We have a lot of nonprofits, and that's a good thing, but we need to increase our tax base with for-profit businesses. So that's one thing I would encourage, that we work with people who are going to build and pay taxes. I mentioned a bunch of properties that are owned by the city that are right off the road on these. I have 2 pages here, and it took me 20 minutes, you know, to come up with that. So just give me a couple more minutes and I'll come up with some more. But these properties should be sold to people who pay taxes. That's my thing. Gloucester is a very special place, okay? We have trees that give us wonderful air quality. We have clean water on our beaches when every other beach is closed in the state. We're lucky. We are so lucky, and we are special. And if we keep building, like on Haskell Street, if anybody's driven down Haskell Street, right, that's a McMansion, or if anybody has driven down Maplewood Avenue to see what they're building on a swamp. Someone told me, no, it's a wetland. No, it's a swamp, but we're overcrowding ourselves. So in order to remain special, we have to be special and care more about our natural resources. Thank you.
All right, Marjorie, so when you think about opportunities for new housing, whether that is rental or home ownership, where do you see potential sites in your ward and across the city? And what steps should the City Council take to encourage the development of more attainable housing in all neighborhoods of Gloucester?
So currently in Ward 3, there is a development that is, it's in the works right now. It's through Harbor Light Homes. And just to clarify something about Harbor Light on Main Street, that's supportive living for senior citizens. They will be studio units, and there's in-house medical care. There's in-house staff that takes care of elderly that aren't ready for a nursing home, but they can't stay home. So they will not be, they are rented, and it's based on income. I think that there is potential, or again, getting back to Harbor Light, there is a development that is in the process of where the old nursing home used to be on Washington Street. That is going to be 100% affordable. And they are lobbying right now to have 70% of that will go towards locals having first priority to rent there. I want to say that there's like 50 or so rental units, and then they're working on getting approval for 7 condominiums or duplexes that will be built that would be for first-time home buyers. And again, 100% affordable. I think areas like that are a great place for housing because it already had a building there. It already had traffic that was connected to what went on in that building there, where it was a nursing home, so there was, a constant in and out of people. And this particular organization, Harbor Light, there were people in the neighborhood that were concerned about the design, and they have redesigned what they have done 3 times to accommodate, to make sure that the people in the neighborhood, that it works well. So, and the design as it sits right now is absolutely beautiful and will be an asset. I think another area downtown, in Ward 3 specifically, is where the Times has moved up to Gloucester Crossing. There's a building down there that, again, there's already traffic, there's already a building, there's already parking. It's going to have very little change to what the neighborhood would have, but you could potentially take a building that's already there, repurpose it. You are not destroying the environment. You are not altering the fabric of the neighborhood. Thank you.
And now, Dawn, how would you foster affordable housing in your ward and across the city? And what types of locations do you think make the most sense? In that context, do you support Harbor Light's proposed affordable supportive senior housing at 256 Main Street, which has been mentioned, which is deeply affordable housing for seniors with in-home support services? Would you support that? Why or why not?
Well, again, I'll reiterate that we have to respect the capacity, whether it's, again, the electrical grid or nature. These open spaces, whether it's a parking lot or a wetland or a swamp or the seashore, these areas are already serving a purpose. They're not designed for development as we're doing. They're serving a purpose. We're on the water. We're interfacing between the dry land and the wet ocean. That's Gloucester. That's not just Gloucester. It's a whole any coast, and that's the purpose that land is already serving. So we have to be sensitive, again, to that and have that dictate where we can build. If you fly over Gloucester in a small airplane, you'll see all the open spaces, and they're not in Ward 2. So there's plenty of room somewhere else. Whether it's even in Gloucester or even in Massachusetts, there's much better places to build. Like I said earlier, the technology allows us to do this, but is it wise? I tend to believe that it isn't, because it makes it a fragile infrastructure that's susceptible to failure, and it's inevitable that will happen. So we may be creating problems, whereas today it looks like a solution. Tomorrow it might be a problem, and tomorrow might be the next day. Tomorrow might be the next generation. So I'm not a big fan of more development down Ward 2. I think we have plenty already on our hands, a full plate, as far as cleaning it up and making it livable, quality of life issues, safety issues, the train is another issue. All those issues, it's already plenty without putting more on our plate downtown.
Thank you. And now we come back up to Scott. So we touched on this a bit tonight. You've expressed interest in infill housing and mixed-use development, such as housing above retail or commercial spaces. So what do you see as realistic opportunities for this kind of development within your ward? Thinking of the Eastern Avenue Shaw's Plaza or the Stop and Shop Plaza on Thatcher Road, would you support those? Do you see any barriers to those?
We have to be careful, as people have mentioned, about the quality of the environment. We've seen a lot of development occur in East Gloucester on Ward 1 on filled marshlands. Stop and Shop is on filled marshlands. We've seen the Thatcher Road, Witham Street project going in after years of litigation on areas that flood. There have been a lot of infill development already. But yes, I would still continue to encourage mixed use above both the Shaws and Stop and Shop area. I mean, it's already been developed. The marsh has already been filled. I don't want to fill it anymore, but yes, I would. Thank you.
All right, and now Dylan. So in your survey responses and tonight, you highlighted that new housing development isn't being shared fairly across all neighborhoods, and that it's important to fit new projects within the character and needs of those neighborhoods. Can you elaborate on what you mean by that and how you would involve neighborhoods in planning for growth more equitably?
Yeah, no, and I've mentioned this tonight, is that I'm not here. I've heard from many constituents in Ward 2 that the development that we're seeing is solely focused in downtown and not shared across the wider city. Those are things that we need to be looking at in the future, looking at how we have more development happening beyond just downtown, supporting home ownership. There are spots that folks have talked about tonight that are going to be supporting affordable homes that are not specifically in Ward 2. To the second part of the question is, there are examples of how do we bring the neighborhood in when there is projects happening, and there have been projects in the past that I've spoken to that the neighborhood was not being part of that process from beginning to end. It's so important to bring people in, from abutters to residents to, and not just to the homeowners, but to the renters as well, having them part of that process. That's very important as well. And I think when you have that process, that you may be able to say, okay, a rendering is this, but in the future, then the next rendering could be something different. I think those are important things. And again, I think you bring more confidence into the project when you bring the community in. When you bring folks in, and I've seen that in the past where folks have called me about specific projects or even just minor projects that are happening. For example, there's some minor work happening at the Market Basket Plaza right now. People have asked, and what's going on? And once you inform folks, it dispels a lot of the disinformation, misinformation, outright lies about some certain projects. I think that's very important because that's key to bringing the community along.
Thank you. Thanks to each of you for being here tonight and everyone else, and for sharing all of your ideas. So we'd like to close with a bit of a looking forward question, given the election is on Tuesday, so everyone remember to vote. So we are starting with Tracy, and then we'll come back around this way. So if you are elected ward councilor, what is your personal vision for Gloucester's housing landscape by the end of your term? How do you hope residents will see and feel the impact of your leadership on this issue?
Okay, so as I said earlier, I am new to Ward 1, but I've lived here, born and raised here my whole life. So what do I see for a vision for housing for Ward 1? I would hope that we are more cautious and caring about open space. I know the people of Ward 1 truly value their open space, their fauna. That's why they moved there. People move to where they want to live. And now and then it changes. So it's not where they wanted to live anymore. People moved to East Gloucester because it's open, it's beautiful, the fresh sea breeze, the fauna, the trees, and everything like that. And we need to be very, very careful not to take that away. And that's my perspective, is to try and preserve what we have and just preserve it and care about it. So thank you.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Of course. So if you were elected ward councilor, what is your personal vision for Gloucester's housing landscape by the end of your term? How do you hope residents will see and feel the impact of your leadership on this issue?
I think one of the first things that we need to do is to not marginalize what people feel. We went through a whole, many, many months of anger and social media battles and whatnot because of the multifamily overlay district, and people for it or against it, whatever, and nobody wanted to stop and listen to what the other people had to say. You don't have to agree with what someone has to say, but we do need to listen to them. And as a ward councilor, I think that's probably one of the most important parts of our job, is to listen to what our constituents are saying. Dylan has hearkened on this in some of his answers with the people in the downtown area. They're like, well, how much more do you expect us to take the burden or the responsibility of producing housing for this city. I think it's imperative that we branch out, particularly Ward 4, Ward 5, where you have, people have huge amounts of land there and huge homes. I think we need to normalize building smaller homes again, would be a wonderful thing. You need to validate what people are feeling. You need to listen to them. That is the most important thing. And I can't emphasize that enough, is listening to what your constituents have to say. And can we always make them, have exactly what they want? No, but if you listen and you open a dialogue, you can usually find common ground, and I think compromise is necessary in a lot of cases. But again, expanding to other wards where there is more land that can sustain it. I am absolutely against destroying any more green space downtown. Again, I'll harken back to the issue that was in my neighborhood. It borders 128. We have one row of trees that protects that entire part of the city from the pollution and the noise from 128. You cut down those trees, there goes the carbon barrier. The environment is so very important, and we can build in other areas of this town and not destroy the environment if it's done with care and with thinking, and not just building for the sake of building.
Don?
Okay. I mentioned earlier about the critical importance of open space. It's already serving a purpose. It's not there for our ego development. It's serving a vital purpose. It's really a question of life and death if you really want to take it to the end point. Ward 2 vision is to increase the quality of life. There are houses downtown Ward 2 that are 8 feet away from a diesel-powered train, and that doesn't even include the issue of a horn that's probably over 130 decibels, which is permanently damaging to life. That's a quality of life issue that needs to be rectified. A lot of houses are expressing water damage that they never had in the history of the house before, and now all of a sudden they are because of displacement. When you place something in a watery substance, it pushes the water away into another area. That's called displacement. So that house might not be directly affected because of the high technology. It might be designed with French drains and cisterns and pumps all over the place, but the neighbors are affected. That's another quality of life issue. You've got the issue with the trash and all that stuff. That's all human produced. People are the issue. I mentioned earlier that the needles that are prevalent in some of these neighborhoods are not dropping from pine trees, they're dropping them from people. That's where the needles come from. And I don't even like bringing the subject up. I face it every day, though, and that's a Ward 2 issue that the rest of the wards might not even have on their radar. Those little things can be addressed very easily on a human level, being sensitive to those people's needs. You're not necessarily helping that person by enabling them to continue behavior that got them in that position to begin with. So I would begin on the human scale and go up from there. Thank you.
Scott?
Yes, thank you, Aaron. In terms of a vision for housing in Ward 1, the first priority is to maintain the quality of life and the open space and the resources that we all enjoy. We have the Pines, we have Swinsterton Field, we have the Seine Fields, we have our coastline, the harbor, our beaches, we have the East Gloucester School playground that's being developed very soon. I want to stress and educate folks about the opportunity that 2 and 3 family conversions offers in terms of expanding housing at infill development at a very low infrastructure cost. Likewise, accessory dwelling units. People aren't aware that they can stay in their own homes and build a unit either for themselves and rent out their larger home or move in themselves. On a larger scale, we are seeing a lot of development along East Main Street, Eastern Avenue. People are building some big structures. I like the idea of working with a developer and creating a zoning framework that encourages residential development above commercial property at the Shaws and at the Stop and Shop Market as we talked about earlier. I think that's a significant opportunity that should be attractive to a developer, and based on the size of their development, the number of units, we would be assured, based on our city zoning regulations, that a number of those units would be affordable. So the market rate properties would subsidize the affordable housing that any developer would put in there. We have a wonderful community. I think we don't want to change it too much, but we want to take good care of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you to everyone for attending tonight's forum, and for the folks up here to run for office. Thank you all for stepping up and being part of the process. What I envision for the next 2 years is to keep Gloucester a livable, affordable place for our fishermen. We are the oldest fishing port in America. Teachers, service workers, young people, families, and seniors. Many seniors who I represent who are not able to afford to downsize because there's nothing available for them to downsize. So for our seniors to be able to age in place, seniors who have lived here, whose parents lived here, whose great-grandparents lived here. Focusing on practical solutions that make a real difference in our community. That means supporting more affordable and workplace housing. And we didn't touch upon, I've met many downtown merchants whose employees don't live here because there's nothing available for them to live in this community. How do we do that? And it's not just about downtown, it's about focusing development across all of the city. And that fits the character of the neighborhood, and that, as I said in previous answers, that brings the neighborhoods together and makes something worthwhile. It's also about encouraging certain things, as we talked about accessory dwelling units and modest multifamily homes. So folks have more of an option to live close to where they work, where they grow up. At the same time, I want to make sure our neighborhoods have a say in that process, as I've said. And I think this isn't just about building homes, this is about building a community. This is about building a community where we all thrive. Whether we agree or disagree, we all live here and we all want this community to thrive. And that is what I think the real thing is it is housing, but it really comes down to a way to be able to live, thrive, and to succeed in this community. And thank you all.
Being the Ward 4 councilor, one of my major things that I would do is, conserve our green space, protect Dogtown, and our beaches in that area. One thing, the city just did was a 10-year plan. Let's review that yearly as a council, as individuals, so that way we know what the plan is. Because that 10-year plan that we did was not just Ward 4, it was the entire city input on that. So let's continue to move that plan forward. Another thing that I think is important, what I want to do is get more concrete answers on our infrastructure. Is there a capacity? We all talk about capacity and all that. How much can Gloucester truly handle through our water, electricity, and all that? Those are things that are crucial into building Gloucester, moving Gloucester forward. Another thing is, what I want to do is be able to look at areas, we all mentioned the Shaw's Plaza. Creating a business down there, keeping a market down there for those to shop for groceries. But are we creating housing on top? And those are plans that we can do as a council and to move forward. And just really continue to listen to those, who live in the area in Gloucester. I think that's important, and getting their feedback. We're a community. We're all neighbors, and we all want what's best, not just for ourselves, but for Gloucester. Because this is a place we chose to live, and we love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Thank you to 1623 for streaming and Gloucester Stage Company for having us. I will remind everyone that we are back here at Gloucester Stage Company again. The seats are highly comfortable. It's a great space. Please come to the at-large candidates forum that we are doing tomorrow night at 6 p.m. here at Gloucester Stage Company. You can also turn in again to 1623 to watch it live. But I would just like to end with a thanks for Housing4All Gloucester for having us here. Again, please go on their website, housingforallgloucester.org to read candidate responses and other issues around housing here in our great community of Gloucester. And let's end it with a huge thank you and round of applause for all of these candidates. So thank you.